Hello there and welcome back to my study. Welcome back to my computer screen. I apologize that my computer screen's a little bit cluttered here. Pay no attention to that stuff off to the side, but focus rather on the document in the middle, obviously, because today we're going to talk about use of the apostrophe to show possession. Now, this is something we probably shouldn't have to talk about at all. I think everybody knows that you need apostrophes to show possession. However, how many times do I pick up a student paper or put it up on the screen and start to read it and come to a noun that is in the possessive usage form and find no apostrophe? Now, I can figure it out. I know that that's a possessive when I see it in context. So perhaps the thinking is that because it's easy enough to figure out from the context of what I'm saying, that this is a possessive noun, I don't have to hit that shift key and hit that apostrophe and then hit that S, because that's all those extra strokes. It's hard on my fingers. It makes me tired. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to type it out and leave out all that, that decoration that I really don't need. Well, that's fine to say, but obviously you should know, and I think you do know, that's not acceptable in academic writing. In academic writing, you want to see that you are using the correct forms of punctuation, of usage, of grammar, and so on. And this is one of those correct forms. And another problem, when you do fail to use an apostrophe to show possession, at least in my case, and I think in many other cases as well, is the reader stops thinking about what you're saying and starts thinking about why you didn't use an apostrophe, or whether you know you should be using an apostrophe. And in my case, I have to stop and make a note of it and draw it to your attention and point out the rule and tell you to use it in the future. So by then I've forgotten what you were talking about, and I have to go back and kind of recreate that in my mind. And that does not, really make me appreciate your writing all that much. So don't stop me reading for something that's as useless and a mistake to make as this. So we could just say, here's the rule, this sentence at the top, use an apostrophe to indicate that a noun is possessive. Now we could stop right there and say, okay, I've told you everything you need to know, just do it. It's not quite that simple, and since we're doing a lecture here, let's just go through some of the forms of how the apostrophe gets inserted into writing in order to show various types of nouns in the possessive form. So the rule, the first part, basically description at the first block of copy here says, possessive nouns usually indicate ownership, as in Tim's hat, the lawyer's desk, or someone's glove. Someone's glove isn't precise. It isn't naming a noun specifically so you know who it is. It's basically an indirect pronoun. However, it still uses an apostrophe S to show possession. Frequently, the ownership is loosely implied. The tree's roots, a day's work, an expression we hear all the time, a day's work. It's all in a day's work. And very often we see that written out and probably sometimes don't even notice without the apostrophe S. That too requires an apostrophe S to show possession. And if you're not sure if you should use an apostrophe S, you can always use an of phrase here. The authors suggest here that you say roots of the tree or the work of the day. And if that's the kind of translation of what you're trying to communicate, then you do need the apostrophe S to show possession. So when do you add an apostrophe S and when do you do something differently? Well, number one, if the noun does not end in S, you add an apostrophe S. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward and it should be fairly obvious. Here's an example. Luck often propels our rock musician's career. Rock musician is singular, does not end in S, so we put an apostrophe S on there to show that the career belongs to the rock musician. The Children's Defense Fund is a nonprofit organization that supports programs for poor and minority children. Children's Defense Fund, again, children does not end in an S, so we put an apostrophe S to show possession. Number two, if the noun is singular and ends in an S or an S sound, we also add an apostrophe S to indicate possession. This wasn't always the case. For a number of years when I was learning to write in grade school, The rule was if it ends in S, just add an apostrophe. And you see that still. A lot of people still do that. But most conventional, contemporary forms of writing and writing style guides indicate that now, if it does end in S, you still use an apostrophe S. It just clarifies things. So if we have the name Lois ends in S, we would say Lois's sister spent last year in India. Lois, apostrophe S, sister, to show her sister. She is in possession of her sister, in this case, so to speak. In the next sentence, her article presents an overview of Marx's teachings. Okay, Marx is as sound, and we in the past might have just used an apostrophe there, but today we use apostrophe S. Okay, when do we add only an apostrophe, as was formerly the case with the nouns ending in S? Okay, if the noun is plural and ends in S, it gets a little redundant to add another apostrophe S, so we add only an apostrophe. Just the rule. For some reason, that's the way it works, and it works fine, and it looks funny when we do it differently. So if we say both diplomats' briefcases were searched by guards, we just put the apostrophe after the S on the plural noun diplomats. The briefcases of the diplomats. Apostrophe, S apostrophe. Okay, now what about joint possession when we have two particular entities who possess something? To show joint possession, use apostrophe S or S apostrophe, depending on the rules above, which one applies, with the last noun only to show individual possession. Make all nouns possessive. What do we mean by joint possession or individual possession? Joint possession would be they both own something together. So, have you seen Joyce and Greg's new camper? We only put the apostrophe S on Greg because Joyce and Greg both own the camper, and this is just an efficient way to designate that. So we just used the second. We only use the apostrophe S on the second noun. Now, when it's joint, when it's individual possession, as it is in this next particular example, John's and Marie's expectations of marriage couldn't have been more different. It shouldn't be couldn't of, it should be couldn't have. I think something happened there when I was dictating this. So we'll just fix that so we aren't confused about that little problem. John's and Marie's expectations of marriage couldn't have been more different. John's expectation was different from Marie's expectation. They both had expectations. They were each individually possessed, if you want to look at it that way, by those expectations. John's and Marie's expectations of marriage couldn't have been more different. So you use apostrophe S in both of those cases. So that's the distribution of ways in which we use the apostrophe S to designate possession. Use it, do it, don't leave it out, and when you do it, just follow these rules and you will be fine.